Hello lovely people, welcome to another book chat, the weekly roundup of things I have read at some point in the past.
Sophie Vlogs.
This week's book chat is actually the books I read at the very end of 2019. I decided right in like the last week of the year to see if I could hit 200 books. So there's a lot of smaller books in this because I was like, let's do this. I'm going to start with the book that I saved to read over Christmas, and that's Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I specifically was saving this for Christmas because it's a lovely edition and I really didn't want it to get all bashed up in my bag. It has got a little bit dirty at the top because I did put it in my bag at one point, but I was saving it because it's a lovely edition. I got it from Shakespeare and Company in Paris. I enjoyed this. I had seen the film of Sense and Sensibility before, so I did know what the story was going to be, but I've done that with most of the Jane Austens I've read, apart from Northanger Abbey, and it's actually always really worked out really well for me. I will say that this is not my favourite Jane Austen that I have read, but I did have a lovely time reading it. This tells the story of Eleanor and Marianne, who are sisters, and sort of the typical Jane Austen thing. Marianne is very like romantic, whereas Eleanor is much more practical, and it's like comparing the two sisters, and their trials and tribulations with them finding love and getting married and stuff like that. I love this cover because I feel like the cover sums up the characters so well. Like Marianne is this hot, passionate colours, and Eleanor is like this cool practicality, but like this overlapping of the two, because like one of the themes in this is that, you know, Eleanor is so always doing things for other people and stuff, so contained, that when she has her own sadnesses and trials and stuff like this, like she keeps it all inside, and then only reveals it at a later time. And like you know, whereas Marianne, so she is capable of such tempests of feeling, it's just that she contains it, whereas Marianne is so outwardly showing her emotion, whereas she learns to be more tempered a little bit. I think I really loved the relationship between the sisters that goes throughout this. I thought it was really lovely. I think my main thing that makes this not my favourite Jane Austen is just the pacing, and I think that might partly be because I did know what was going to happen. At times it felt, some of it felt a little drawn out, and I would have liked to have like moved to the next plot beat a little bit faster. And then comparatively, stuff like how Marianne's marriage is all resolved at the end just felt quite quick in comparison. So I think that element of pacing is what stopped me from truly loving this one. But again, I think maybe if I did a reread, I think that might not bother me so much, because I was comparing this to like the pacing of the film, and I really like the film, whereas actually it is, you know, it's slower, it's more stately, and that might be something that I like more of when I am aware of that going in. But it had a really good time, I really liked it. The next book, which I was also saving Christmas because it's just a lot of fun, is The Secret Chapter by Genevieve Cogman. I think this is the 6th book in the Invisible Library series. I will talk about it with no spoilers. The Invisible Library series has like a multiverse going on, and the library is like this still point, and the library tries to maintain stability in all the worlds, which are constantly threatened by fae, who are beings of chaos, and dragons, who are beings of like law and order. And then if all the worlds veer too far to one side or the other, then things go terribly wrong, etc. At this stage we're at now, the politics of all this are much more complex. One thing I love about this series is it's constantly playing around with genre. So each different book has like a different focus and a different genre, because these different worlds allow you to explore things. So previously we've had like high chaos Venice, which is like stereotypical Venice masquerade balls. We've had like Prohibition era with like gangsters and guns and stuff. We've had we've just had so many different exploring of genres going on, which has been really fun. This one is kind of like a heist narrative mixed with like a James Bond film. So there's like a elusive billionaire on an island with things, and then they have to do a heist, and there's just like I enjoy James Bond films, so I liked all of the nods to that. I also enjoy heist narratives, so I liked all of the practicalities of that. Irene is always a really fun heroine for me, and one thing that I particularly liked about this is that each book, although it's exploring like sort of a different genre and different notes and stuff, we're constantly each time being given a little bit more information on this overarching thing, which is building. So this one gives us more backstory on dragons, dragon history, where dragons may come from, some potentially explosive information about dragons, that sort of thing. So I loved this. I think this is just such a cracking series. It's one of the ones that I have the most fun reading, and in particular I enjoy how it manages to play around with genre but also keep delivering to you threads of this wider picture that I'm still interested to see where that's going. Now we move on to the section which is smaller books that I read to try and hit my goal, and I did hit my goal. So I started off with This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal, El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. This absolutely destroyed me, just as a start point. So this is science fiction, and we follow two characters called Blue and Red, and they're sort of, Red works for the agency and Blue works for the garden, and they're both agents, and these 2 points are trying to manipulate timelines in their own favour. So these 2 agents are constantly running up and down timelines, trying to engineer things to work best for their side, and they start exchanging letters. And it just turns into, like, it's kind of a bit of a retelling of Romeo and Juliet, but also, like, okay, so first of all, I love the ideas in this. The ideas of these worlds, the ideas of these 2 agencies, and how each, like, the agency is very, like, technology, data and stuff, and the garden is very, like, organic growth and stuff, but they're both formidable in their own ways and stuff like that. And just a lot of the world in this, you get it in, like, bits and pieces. You don't get, like, huge narration introducing you to the world building, etc. You piece together as these letters go on, and as you get glimpses into what each person is doing. It's these letters that become love letters, which really destroyed me. I just thought that they were absolutely gorgeous. Sometimes things just connect with you and hit you, and I can see how this could not be someone's cup of tea, because you might want more world building, you might not be invested in the relationship, blah blah blah. I was invested, I absolutely loved it, and I was gripped, and I absolutely adored it. It was fantastic. After that, I wanted, like, a palate cleanser because I was emotional. So then I read Amelia, Fang and the Half Moon Holiday by Laura Ellen Anderson. This is a children's book. I'd recommend it for, like, primary, middle grade type level. Laura Ellen Anderson is an illustrator who I follow on Twitter because I think her art style is really cute, and the formatting of this book is really cute. You sort of go between, you have lots of full page illustrations, which are lovely, and then also sometimes pages are formatted in darkness. Oh, I can't find. So then sometimes pages are just black, other times, like, oh, I don't know. It's so delightfully done as a package. I think kids would really enjoy it. This follows Amelia Fang, who is a vampire, and her friends. They're all like little, like, they're all very sweet and child friendly, but they are all like night creatures and stuff. And they go on this trip to, they go on this holiday trip to Sugar Plum Island. They get shrunk down to a very tiny size, and they have to try and get back to normal and stuff. So there are some really sweet ideas in this. I thought it was like a solidly enjoyable children's book. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars because I enjoyed it, but obviously I am not the target audience for this, but I don't want to punish the book for not being the target audience. I do think it's a very good book for children. After that, I read Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan Maguire, which I did really enjoy this. So this follows, all I knew going into this is that it follows children who have, like, gone to other worlds, so like falling into Alice in Wonderland or stuff like that, who then return to their own world, and it's like this boarding school where they can go to be, like, rehabilitated. What this actually turned out to be was sort of like a murdery mystery, which I enjoyed. I just wasn't expecting. So first of all, we follow Nancy, who was in a world of the dead, but is now back in the world. And one thing I found very interesting was getting all these glimpses into all the different worlds that all the people have gone into, and, like, the classifications that they use to talk about them. And you know, like, they're all these children, the worlds that find them are, it's geared towards the worlds where they would feel at home. So even though you might describe it to someone and it sounds absolutely horrific, to them, like, to you, that is, like, what you need. So that was, like, an interesting element. The murder mystery element I did sort of figure out before the end, which is not always a criticism, because if you have enough clues you will do that. I felt there were a couple of clues given which I thought that the character should have picked up on a little bit more. And also, like, after the first person is killed, this isn't really a spoiler because I've just said it's a murder mystery, but after the first person is killed, I just felt like some of the characters reacted a bit weird and stuff. So I had a few little pieces of, oh, this just felt a bit weird to me. But on the whole, I really enjoyed this. I thought the world building was such that I am intrigued at where we're going to go next. I have been given glimpses of things and I'm super intrigued by them, but I feel like there is still a lot more to explore here, so I'm interested to see what the other books will be doing, what characters will be focusing on, that sort of thing. So very, very intrigued, looking forward to seeing where it goes next. And then finally, the final book that I'm going to talk about is Bloodlust and Bonnets by Emily McGovern, which I talked about in my January haul. Is by the creator of My Life's Background Slytherin, which I absolutely love. This is her first graphic novel. It is riffing off of, like, Regency novel tropes. I thought it was okay. I thought I had a fun time reading it. My favourite thing about it is this riffing off of tropes. So we've got, like, a plucky young heroine who thinks she's special, but is she really? And, like, Lord Byron, who is, like, so extra. And, like, this mysterious Shem, who is like, ooh, what is the backstory here, etc. It's very, like, and, like, they're essentially hunting down vampires, and the vampires are so, like, dramatic, and I enjoyed that side of it. There were things I really enjoyed about it. I think a lot of the humour for me came with playing off these tropes. I think my critique would be that I felt it was a little bit overlong. I could have done with a little bit of editing, I think, because jokes which work well when you're posting a weekly webcomic, some of the jokes that you don't have for a while and they pop back up and stuff like that, they work because you're not expecting them and then they appear again. You're like, oh, it's this recurring joke, yay. Sometimes that didn't work quite so well in this as like a single entity. And I think maybe that might just be because if it had been tightened a bit, things would have landed better, that sort of thing. So I don't think it's bad. I think it could have done with a small edit at the edges. But I do enjoy this riffing off of genre and of tropes and stuff like that. It was fun. And, like, there's a lovely queer romance in this and stuff like that. So like, I enjoyed it. It was what I needed, because I don't know if you can tell I have a little bit of a cold. And I needed something that was, like, super chill and fun to read. And so it did fulfill that purpose. It wasn't quite as sparkling as I had hoped it might be. That's everything I want to talk about in this week. As per usual, have you read any of them? Do you have any thoughts on them? I would love to hear anything you have to say in the comments down below. Otherwise, I hope you're having the loveliest of days, and I will see you next time for something different.